Welcome to Lecture 8. Now, when does your speech begin? More specifically, when does the process of communication begin? That's really when we would say your speech starts, even if it happens before you start talking. I'll give you a hint. It generally does happen before you start talking. The process of communication in public speaking begins as soon as the audience's attention is drawn to you. This would most commonly be when your name is called or as you rise from your chair. This then is when communication begins, when your speech begins. Now, in order to communicate effectively, we need to study the early areas of bodily movement that you'll have in a speech in order to be more effective. Now, let us see in your notes effective areas of bodily action. Number 1, walking. Walking. Your speech, or the process of communication, begins as you rise from your chair to approach the speaking position. Letter B, from your chair to the speaking position. How do you make that transition? Number 1, rise gracefully from your chair. Rise gracefully from your chair. Now, all chairs are different, so get to know your chair ahead of time. For instance, in this room, I have a stool sitting off camera that I've been using to set my notes on. If I were sitting on this stool on a stage, I would sit on it quite differently than if I were sitting on one that was more of a lounge chair before I got up, one that has some padding, one that's like a theater chair and automatically swings up behind you. Each chair is going to be a bit different. This one is a very tall chair. So if you're sitting and presenting, you want to try to sit in a way that looks professional. But if you're standing from this chair to present, it would be a little bit awkward. You'd have to practice ahead of time. You would need to position your feet somewhat differently in order to have a graceful standing motion. It would, however, be easier than a chair that's very low to the ground. A chair that's very low to the ground, you often might even feel that you need to heave yourself out of, which is very ungraceful and is not the way you want to start a presentation. How do you properly rise from a chair? I know this isn't an etiquette class, but in public speaking, it's important to know. To rise from a chair, you want to, A, know the chair ahead of time, and then there's a few specific steps you're going to need to take. As you're sitting in your chair, you'll generally be sitting all the way back in your chair when you're just relaxing. As you become aware that your presentation's about to start, that you're about to be the center of attention, you want to move from sitting all the way back in the chair to sitting close to the front. Right before your name's called, or right before you stand to begin presenting, you should only be utilizing the front 2.5 inches of your chair. If you're utilizing more of your chair, you're not sitting properly. So you should only be seated on the front 2.5 inches of your chair, and then you want to make sure that your legs are not crossed, so they're shoulder width apart, and that you've drawn your feet in so that the ball of your foot is almost directly below your center of weight. What do I mean by this? Basically, right before your name's called in a presentation, you should be in a squat position only with your weight resting on the chair. Why is this? Because in this position, by being, even though you're on a chair, by being down in a position where your center of gravity is aligned with your feet, when your name is called, you can just rise gracefully up and start moving. As opposed to, if you're sitting back in your chair, when your name's called, you need to launch yourself forward in order to stand up. So, before your name's called, you should only be using about 2.5 inches of chair that you're sitting on. You want to have your feet tucked in underneath you so that you're in a squatting position. And then when your name is called, just stand gracefully up. As you stand, your calf should feel the edge of the chair. Now that'll be important for sitting down, But in standing up, it's simply a consequence. Once you've stood, again, you want to approach the speaking position. I believe that we have that here in your notes. Number 2, take your position inconspicuously. Take your position inconspicuously. Now, if there's chairs between you and your speaking position, you should count the stairs ahead of time. As you go up the stairs, you don't want to look down at the stairs. You want to keep your head close to level. Now, not necessarily exactly level, but you want to keep your head close to level and your eyes, again, close to level, just viewing the stairs in your peripheral. At that point, having already practiced going up the stairs, having already counted them, you should be able to move gracefully up the stairs to your speaking position. As you take your position, it's important that you've scouted out the area ahead of time. If you get to a speaking position and you have notes or water or something, and you haven't scouted the area out ahead of time, you're going to waste the audience's time and look uncertain as you start your presentation. If I were to have started the first video of freshman speech by turning on the camera and saying, "Welcome to freshman speech," and then trying to find a spot to put my notes, and I need to move the little chair over here, I need to find the book, where did I put the textbook? Now, I could have done that. When I walked in this room, the stool that I just used for an illustration was in the center of the camera area, but I didn't want to teach while sitting down. That's not a good example of public speaking, so I moved it to the side. I looked at, okay, how much will the notes show if I set it here? You want to scout your area out ahead of time so that you can take your position inconspicuously. Inconspicuous means without drawing attention. Now, number 4, establish eye contact before beginning to speak. Establish eye contact before beginning to speak. Now, this one is slightly different in a video setting often. Often, if you watch a video on YouTube or whatnot, it starts right in with a verbal introduction or with a sound of some type. However, if you're speaking to a live audience, as you begin your presentation, you want to take 1 to 2 seconds to engage the audience with your eyes and allow them to get ready for you to begin. Often, this works best to move your eyes to 3 points in the room and to start speaking on the 3rd point. In a physical classroom setting, I'll generally stand up in front of class when it's time to begin, and I'll normally have my notes in front of me, I'll have pulled up attendance. Then when it's time to begin, I'll step out from behind the podium, because I don't like to hide behind a podium. I'll step out from behind the podium, I'll look to the left, I'll look to the right. Good morning, welcome to freshman speech. And as you take the 3rd look to the left, look to the right. Hi, I'm glad you're here today. On the 3rd motion, with the 3rd group that you look at, you can start speaking. Give a second over here, and then begin speaking with the 3rd group that you look at. So establish eye contact before beginning to speak. Letter B, walking or moving during the speech. This is a fun part. For some of you who are more analytically minded, this is for you. Well, it's for all of us, but you'll enjoy this especially. Walking or moving during your speech. Number 1, a step forward emphasizes a point. A step forward emphasizes a point. When you're speaking, when you're presenting, there's going to be a lot of times where you want to make emphasis, and rightly so. If you have an important message, it's important for you to be constantly making emphasis. Well, taking a step forward is going to emphasize whatever you're talking about. Number 2, a step backward should only be used as a pause, transition, or to reestablish your position. A step backward should only be used as a pause, a transition to a separate topic, and I forgot to say that the first time, but it is important to notice a separate topic, or simply to reestablish your position. Now, if I was constantly giving a point of emphasis, constantly taking a step forward, a step forward, a step forward, pretty quickly, I would be out from underneath these lights that we have here. I would be right up against the camera. Because of that, I have to consistently be taking steps back away from the camera to make sure that I have room, again, to take a step forward and make a point of emphasis. The same is true with a live audience. You want to make sure that you're not just wandering backwards aimlessly, but that though you're having steps forward to emphasize a point, you need to then reset your position as opportunity allows. Now, a step straight back isn't used as a transition normally, but a step back and to the side can show a separation between topics that you're having, or can transition you to a topic that's somewhat separate. Whereas a step to the side, not back, but simply to the side, will indicate a transition between topics of like manner, between topics within the same realm. I believe that's your next blank, number 3. A step to the side will help in making a transition. Now, in the Greek, there's 2 words for another. There's allos and heteros. They both mean another, but they carry different points of emphasis. Allos means another of the same kind. Okay, would you like another root beer? Yes, I would like another. I would like another of the same kind. Heteros is another of a different kind. Okay, if I just had a coffee and I was like, hey, would you like a water? Or would you like a cookie? Okay, a cookie is different from a coffee, but it's another item that you could offer me. It's something of a different kind. Now, in public speaking, we have allos and heteros transitions. Allos of the same kind is a transition that you would simply use a side step for. A heteros transition between things that are separate would be back and to the side. If I was talking about the Romans road, I would have that we're all sinners. I would have that there's a payment for sin. I would say that the payment is death. I would talk about Jesus Christ coming and making a satisfactory atonement. Those would be steps to the side. They're of a similar topic. But if I was talking about in the Christian faith, we believe, but the Jews don't hold to, you'd want a step back into the side to show that it's a separate topic that you're going to be discussing or a separate point. Okay, number 4, always move on purpose, always. Your movement should not be a result of nervousness. It's often helpful to take a video of your presentations or present in a mirror or to friends. And then if you did take a video, play it at 2 times speed. Speed it up and look for anything that it did not seem purposeful. And if it was not purposeful, again, get good at that self-reprimand and cut it out. Letter C, walking after the speech. Walking after the speech. Number 1, don't leave before you finish. Don't leave before you finish. Look at the audience for a second or 2 to allow the message to sink in. Now, in a play, you have to wait until the lights go down before you break character or walk off the stage. In public speaking, when you finish your presentation, give your audience a second or 2 to know that it's finished, for the message to sink in before you walk off. Don't finish your presentation and immediately hustle off the stage. Because if you do that, your audience is going to feel, oh wow, he didn't really care about it. It wasn't really that important. Give them a moment to receive the message and then move to take your seat. Now, number 3, turn and walk directly to your chair. Again, if there's stairs, try to count those stairs ahead of time. Try to keep your head fairly level as you're moving to the seat. Again, with purpose and posture. Don't break your speaking character, as how you depart will affect how people will receive your message. Number 3, sit down gracefully. Okay, how do we sit down gracefully? Now, we talked about standing. We talked about it being similar to being in a squatting position and then just standing directly up and moving away. when you're approaching a chair, it's similar, but there's just a few extra steps you need to remember. As you're approaching a chair, you're walking towards the chair, you see it in front of you. You don't want to fixate on the chair. You want to kind of keep your eyes out and level, and you can see the chair in your peripheral vision. So as you keep your eyes out and level, you want to walk up to the chair. And let's say the chair is right here, right in front of me. You want to walk up toward the chair, and then when you're one step away from the chair, okay, one step away, I'm going to pivot. So I've currently taken a step with my right foot. I'm one step away from the chair. I'm going to pivot with my right foot. I'm going to put my left foot up against the chair until I feel the edge of the chair with my calf. Okay, so I'm going to walk up to the chair, and it doesn't matter which foot I have, but okay, I'm going to step, and if there were a chair here, I can envision what it feels like on the back of my calf. I can feel the edge of the chair on my calf. I've stepped toward it, I've turned this leg around, I can feel the chair. Now I match with the other foot so that I can feel the edge with both calves, and at that point I know exactly where the chair is despite having never looked at it. And I know that my feet are in the right position, because if I simply do a squatting motion right now, I'm going to end up sitting on the front 2.5 inches of the chair. From there, hands on your knees, you can scoot back into a more comfortable position. Practice this as you're recording your other presentations. Practice coming into the camera lens from a sitting position and returning to it. It's important to get to know. Remember that as you're approaching that chair, don't look at it, don't fixate on it. Keep your eyes level, know where it is, feel for it with the back of your leg. Match with your other leg. Move your hands to your knees as you simply squat down onto the edge of your chair. This is how to gracefully rise and stand from your chair. Now, number 2, facial expressions. Facial expressions. Your face should be a reflection of your heart and mind. It should be a reflection of your heart and mind. Your face should communicate your desire to be heard. Your desire to be heard. Guys, don't get the gestures and get the foot movements, but then have a blank slate for a face. Allow your face to communicate. God has given us such amazing capabilities within our face. The many muscles, the different ways we can move our eyebrows. Make sure your face is communicating as well. It helps when you're giving an emphasis or trying to show a level of excitement to raise your eyebrows up. If you were here in person at the beginning of every class period, during those warm-ups, we would practice moving the face. Let's say, okay, make sure we have eyebrows up with every one of, and we'll have a word. Every time we say this word, your eyebrows have to go up, and then you have to frown on this word. Warm your face up. Get used to making facial expressions, because those will help your audience to receive the message that you have for them. We'll see you in Lecture 9.